Are the mics working?
For us, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Good afternoon. Welcome to the July 8th, 2019 meeting of the Traffic and Parking Commission. And before we get started, what I'd like to do is, this is one of the few commissioners where a Metro police officer serves. They represent the Metro Police, and he could not be here today because of the funeral of Officer Anderson. So on behalf of the commission, we'd like to extend our condolences to the Andersons and their family and all the police officers who've served with him. So the police always provide great insight to this commission, public safety, and I just want to make sure that everyone knows that our empathy to the family. Okay. If you are not satisfied with the decision made by the Traffic and Parking Commission, you may appeal the decision by filing for a writ of certiorari with the Davidson County Chancery or Circuit Court. Your appeal must be filed within 60 days of the date of the entry of the Commission's decision. We advise that you seek your own independent legal advice to ensure that your appeal is filed in a timely manner and that all procedural requirements have been met. I ask for approval of today's agenda.
So moved.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes of the June 10th, 2019 meeting.
So moved.
We have a first. Is there a second?
Second.
First and a second. The minutes, all in favor?
Aye.
The minutes have been approved. Approval of the consent agenda. Please note that items on the consent agenda will be voted on at a single time. No individual public hearing will be held, nor will the commission debate these items unless a member of the audience or the commission requests that the item be removed from the consent agenda. Does anyone have an item they would? Yes.
I'd like to discuss items F and I.
Okay. F and I? Okay. Does anyone else have one? Okay. That being the case, would you make a motion to remove those items from the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to remove items F and I from the consent agenda.
Okay.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Based on that, anyone in the audience? Okay. We will read the consent agenda as modified. Item A, 2019M018AB001, a request for the abandonment of right-of-way and easement of an unnumbered alley from alley number 1140 eastward to the dead end between Charlotte Avenue and Trevor Street, requested by Barge, Cawthon and Associates applicant. Item B, authorize no parking on the south side of Palmer Place from 8th Avenue to 250 feet west of 8th Avenue, requested by KCI Technologies. Item C, authorize 50-foot loading zone on the south side of Lee Avenue just west of 8th Avenue, requested by KCI Technologies. Item D, authorize no parking on the south side of Bradford Avenue from 8th Avenue to 300 feet west of Franklin Road, requested by KCI Technologies. Item E, request to remove valet at 601 12th Avenue South, requested by Parking Management Company. Item G, request to install a valet parking at 1703 Church Street, requested by the Parking Company. Item H, request for valet parking at 20th Avenue at Belcourt, requested by the Parking Management Company. Item J, request for a loading zone at 1800 20th Avenue North, requested by the Moxie Hotel. Item K, authorize no trucks over 8 ton on Overton Road from Hill Road to Hogan Road, requested by Council Member Elrod. Item L, request for a new traffic signal on 3rd Avenue in Monroe, requested by Newhoff Development. Item N, request for a new traffic signal on 2nd Avenue in Monroe, requested by Newhoff Development. Item N, request for new traffic signal on 2nd Avenue in Taylor, requested by Newhoff Development. Item O, request for a new traffic signal at 24th Avenue South and Pierce Avenue, requested by Vanderbilt Police Department. Item P, authorize an all-way stop at Highland Circle and East Campbell, requested by Council Member Van Reese. Item Q, authorize always stop at Ewing Avenue and Ash Street, requested by Reagan Smith Engineering. Item R, authorize always stop at Montgomery Bell Avenue, requested by KCI Technologies. The consent agenda has been read. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
The consent agenda has been approved. Okay, let's go back to item F and I. Item F is requesting the valet parking on the east side of Almond Street at Malloy, requested by Town Park. And item I is request for a shuttle stop at 414 Union Street, requested by the Nashville Downtown Partnership. Ms. Kern.
Yes, so for item F, my question was on, it looks like a very, very narrow street, and it was under construction on Google Maps when I was looking at it. So I was just wondering if this is wide enough to have valet parking on Almond Street. I don't know if,
Currently, there is spaces available behind the Hyatt Place Hotel, and there are vehicles parking there. The Hyatt Place has expressed an interest to add to their valet location, and that's why we're making a recommendation to approve this valet for the Hyatt Place Hotel on behalf of Town
so
Park.
is it on the two-way street, Almond Street, or?
It will be on Almond Street, the two-way street, and there is adequate space because cars are already parked there.
Okay. Do you know how wide that street is, or? It looks super narrow to me, but.
I'm gonna guess, and this is just a guess, maybe 30 feet wide.
Okay. Okay.
We would pull it up, but we don't have a connection.
Got
Sorry.
it. Okay. And there's already a valet there.
Currently they have one valet location on the front of the hotel, and they're requesting another one be added on Almond Street
Oh,
to
okay,
help
so it's
do
not.
their overflow for additional valet at that location on Almond.
Okay. Well, that I guess answers my questions. I just wasn't sure on the maps it was all under construction. So I'll make a motion to approve item F.
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The item's been approved. Item I.
Well, this one I just had more concerns with about Union Street in general. There's already a shuttle stop on the third block, and I was looking today. Looks like there's one also on the 5th. There's also valet on the left side, so you have three lanes and one on each side. So.
Mr. Russell Payne with the Downtown Partnership is here, and he can help answer your questions on that.
Yes,
Shuttle
please.
stop.
Please state your name for the record, please.
Russell Payne with the Nashville Downtown Partnership. We are requesting this new stop. There is one about a block off, but this is going to be a new stop. This is going to be servicing about 1,500 people a day, or in the morning and the afternoon. So because of the numbers that we serve at the one stop, the next stop over, we'd have all the pedestrian traffic going to that building itself. We think it'd be one, safe for the pedestrians, and two, for the flow of traffic, because we do share that stop with MTA as well. So to try and squeeze all those shuttles into that one stop, and with the fact that it is serving that actual physical building, we think it'd be best to move it in front of that building.
I guess my concern just is generally with Union overall and like the long-term plans. There's 3 lanes, and it's essentially operating at less than 1 lane most days, and
Right.
so it is also a planned bike lane on there some days. So
Sure.
how does this fit in, I guess, long-term with making sure Union functions for anybody?
Well, you can say that about downtown. We collectively, the commission, everybody in this room probably need to look at downtown as a whole and decide the bike plan needs to be looked at and overlaid on all these hodgepodge valets and shuttle stops and construction zones and dumpsters.
Scooters.
Scooters, and scooter corrals. So I feel it, because right now Union is operating as a 1-lane road. Luckily, the traffic on it, it's not over capacity just yet, and that can get that way in the evening sometimes. But I understand your concern, but I also understand Russell's thought of 1,500 pedestrians having to cram into one one shuttle stop. So I understand both sides of it. I think we just need to take a big overall look at what your concern is, though.
Yeah. Is there also a shuttle stop at 5th? Because today I went by, there were 2 shuttles also at 5th. So there were shuttles at 3rd and at 5th.
There is a shuttle stop between 3rd and 4th on Union that serves that building, the UBS building. This would be 2 new lines that are being activated, so these are new people coming on. These aren't existing people. Those patrons will be going to Phillips Plaza. As it relates to, I guess, highest and best use, if you look at it from the perspective of what does this do for transportation demand management in the city of Nashville, this will be taking off almost, or a little bit over rather, 750,000 trips into the downtown area on a yearly basis. And along that comes the carbon offset, 27,000 gallons of fuel. So it is definitely one of the highest and best uses. There is an alternate at some point in time that if this becomes an issue that we discussed possibly using on the other side, but it proves to have its own concerns as well. But as to highest and best use, I think this is really among one of the highest and best uses of them. It's about, I've got some other numbers here, that's 530 miles less driven into the downtown just based on the route itself. So it is definitely getting some positive environmental impact.
Is that right there across from Bank of America? Is that where you're talking about?
That is. The Bank of America Plaza is now Phillips Plaza.
You know, the shuttles serve a lot of people in that area because they park over across the bridge, especially a lot of your court employees park over there and they use that shuttle exclusively to get back and forth. DA's office uses it a lot, their workers. So it does keep a lot of vehicles out of the downtown area for sure.
The entire program, probably our last estimation prior to this was it takes about 2.3 million trips off the downtown core roads. So it definitely has significant impact.
Yeah, I appreciate all the benefits of the shuttle. My specific concerns are Union, and we talked about this, I think, a year ago when a valet stand went in on the left side of the street. And so it just it seems like Union is not functioning particularly well currently. And with other plans, I know, the buses also are using Union and are currently having to weave in and out because of shuttles and valet all stacking up. And then, not to mention through traffic.
How many, are there stops on Dedrick?
Stops on Dedrick, let me think. No, there are no stops on Dedrick. That is one of the possible alternates that we looked at, but the Union would end up having to be the alternate stop anyway, just due to the fact of food truck Thursdays, this type of thing. Any special events would cause a lot of concern, so ended up using this an awful lot. But Dedrick would be a reasonable accommodation for us as well, with the ability to use this during the days and times that Dedrick was not available.
All right. Well, I guess maybe this is retroactively almost more concerned about the valet because it seems like the shuttle is serving a lot more people than the 5 on-street parking spots in the valet zone that's on the left side there. So I'm fine moving forward with this, but I would just really like to make sure anything else that's going on Union, we're not adding more cars to Union. And so I don't know, are there any plans to do a downtown study of where valet are going and how that interacts with bus stops and shuttles and all those different things?
Right now, we don't have any study underway. What we need to consider in the future is like a 3-lane section like Union. All of the utilization for valet and all obviously needs to be on one side of the road, and then travel lane, and then maybe a bike lane or a bus lane. That would be ideal. We'd have to go back and study that entire downtown area. I tell you what it gets into. People want their loading in front of their building, by gosh, and they will fight for it tooth and nail. So that's the battle we run into. And by in the ordinance, the valet has to be in front of your business anyway. So now you start fighting. Well, we can't give you a valet because of the lane use, and people come before this commission and they plead their case and get their valet.
Is there a map of downtown that would show where all these valet and shuttle stops are? Because maybe that would be a thing that would be a helpful visual to kind of see.
We do have an ARC map or a GIS map showing the parking meters and probably not up to exact today's setting, but we can update it and pass it around.
I think that
it
might
changes
be
by the minute, though.
Yeah,
You know how it is.
yeah.
Construction and monthly. Every month in here we have something.
right.
Maybe down the road, the commission could request, like a part of our meeting sort of be education about what's going on in the core downtown. Here's where you have this as of that day,
Yeah.
because I know it changes, but just a little bit of an education.
Or some of the larger
course.
construction projects that are gonna close for a year, maybe we'll bring our permits group in here and kinda explain what's going on.
That'd be great.
Why is there a crane in front of my business or whatever?
Well, I brought out
Look who's here.
before, why we couldn't use some of the alleys for valet parking. Now, they may not be directly next to the business, but is that a possibility or not? All right, Diane, tell me.
According to the codes, you cannot park any vehicles in an alley unless they're actively engaged in loading and unloading, and that's according to the codes.
Even if it's people unloading and loading.
But the nature of it with valet companies is they have 10 minutes to move a vehicle out of a valet lane.
Okay,
And sometimes that 10-minute goes to 20 and 30 minutes.
I got you. Well, I'm brainstorming. That's all I'm doing.
We appreciate it.
So would you like to
Yeah,
make a motion to
I can do that.
approve, and would you like the minutes to reflect your concerns about Union Street?
Yeah, and I think I'd like the minutes to reflect my broader concerns. I feel like we're making a lot of the valet decisions downtown without any other information, and at some point we can't keep adding more. So,
I think it would be
yeah.
helpful in the long term to have this map, when maybe we make these decisions.
I think that would be very helpful. And looking, I mean, even broadly, we've talked about this in the downtown bike lane discussions, but it comes up in other conversations as well, of having, we might have to have a plan, we need to have a better plan for downtown and how all the lanes are functioning, and where it's a priority to have bus lanes, where it's a priority to have shuttle lanes, where it's a priority to have loading. Because I feel like we're making these decisions without any sort of idea of what's actually going on.
Ms.
Yeah.
Peoples, if you'd make sure when you write up the minutes, if it would reflect this discussion about the broader discussion of Union Street, I think that would be helpful, please.
Yeah, thank you.
And we do have a master schedule that shows all the valet locations by company names.
That would be
Yeah, we
helpful to
do
get a
have
sense of how many we have downtown, because
Right.
I don't even know how many there are on every block.
Approximately 45 valet locations at this time. 13 operators.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
that's a lot. Probably too many.
We have 13 different valet companies that currently have permits to operate valets.
And it's just for my own educational purposes here, just to have an idea of all of the different stops that the partnership currently operates would be helpful. An overview of what your schedule is.
Sure.
So that I have a better idea of what we're talking about long-term
Sure.
and how that fits into this current plan.
I can tell you that the stop that we are currently asking for approval for that's the only stop on that line. So it will be serving 1,500 people with that one stop. Goes back to Nissan Stadium, and it will typically run from 6:30 in the morning till about 8:30 at night.
So it's a constant shuttle all day long?
It
Okay.
is.
Okay.
All right. So
Make a motion to approve.
we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's been approved. Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Payne.
So we'll go on to
The first item on appeal is appeal for an all-way stop at Stokes Lane and Stokesmont Road requested by Councilmember Pulley, who is unfortunately traveling today and cannot be present.
I guess it's always, correct?
The next, yes, there's three of these that are all appeal. One is an appeal for a reduced speed limit on Stokes Lane from 30 miles per hour to 25 miles an hour. And third item is an appeal to reduce speed limit on Battlefield Drive from 35 to 25.
I need to make a motion to continue.
People here.
We have some folks here who are interested in talking about the stop sign, I know at Stokes and Stokesmont, and probably the speed limit, which is related to that, I assume.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
concerns.
All right. Okay, so let's, since the council member's not here, we will have the citizens come and speak.
So,
Please.
and as you're coming up, in front of you, Councilman Pulley has sent an email, and I made a copy and put it out in your packet there. So,
Okay. You would come and speak, and we'll hear from everyone, and then we'll have a discussion.
a bunch of us met.
Can you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Paul Morris. I live on Stokes Lane with my wife. We've been there since 2004. And for a number of years, we've been concerned because our street is a thoroughfare. It runs like a straight bullet between Belmont Boulevard and Hillsborough Road. And Stokes is teed into by Benham, Hopkins, Stokesmont, and Amanda on the right side if you're going toward Belmont. The left side is Brightwood. A lot of people use our street to get between those two main arteries. So it's become a bit of a problem because a lot of people walk in our neighborhood. A lot of them are children and older people. And some of us got together with Councilman Pulley about 6 weeks ago and talked about it. And I was thinking he would be here today, but you said he's traveling?
Yes, he's out of town for a funeral.
One thing I did know is they wanted me to bring the names of the people who signed the petition,
Okay.
and I don't know who to give that to.
You can just give it to Ms. Peoples here.
So we thought about two possibilities. One was a stop sign somewhere along Stokes. Another was reducing the speed limit. Another thing that didn't come up at the meeting, but which I'd like to propose, on Sharondale, which is a street not far from Stokes, 23rd Avenue runs into Sharondale like this. And just before you get to that street, it says reduce speed to 15 miles per hour. Well, Stokes has nothing comparable. We've got 4 streets teeing into Stokes and no signs that say, please slow down. So that would be another suggestion. I don't know why we don't have that, because Sharondale does have that. So yeah, we're just frustrated. A lot of us are feeling this way, and the petition will reflect. I think 67 people signed it. I know there are more people that are concerned that didn't sign it. So,
Is there anyone else here to speak on this?
has anybody else come? Yeah, another problem was, and I don't know what happened, but I thought this meeting was at the Howard office building. And when I got there, the person greeted me and said, "Oh, there's no meeting here." So I don't know how I got the idea that the meeting was there, but anyway, so there was nobody else there. Is anybody else here from my neighborhood? So they may be confused too. I don't know.
There were several there. I was there, and you turned around.
Okay.
It's not a part of your group.
Yeah, maybe they'll show up.
Okay.
Anyway, trying to think if there's anything else that. Well, I guess I'd like to just put it to the folks here who are who can speak to this. Why hasn't anything been able to happen yet? Because we understood that both the stop sign and the speed limit reduction, that we were not eligible for that. Why are we not eligible for that? Would be one question. Are we eligible for speed humps on Stokes? Would be another question.
All right, well, we'll have a discussion about your issues, and we'll probably get answers to those questions during the discussion.
Okay.
It looks like this is listed as an appeal, so do we have, do we know why it was denied?
Mr. Knopf, can you illuminate the commission, please?
Yeah, it gets into, Corby, you got our text slide, our numbers? Anyway, while we got the map up, you see Stokesmont right in the middle of where we're talking about. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this, let's just tackle all 3 of these at once. They're all related, kind of. We can separate Battlefield if you want, but the residents and the council member want to slow people down on Stokes, whether it's with a stop sign, whether it's with the reduced speed limit, or both with some enforcement. All right, Corby, you got the numbers? Well, let me see if I can just. I've got the numbers, but you'll have to just kind of memorize them instead of seeing them. All right, 85th percentile speed on Stokes, and that's the percent we look at. That's good. That'll do. See that bottom left? You see 15th, 50th, 85th, and you see 38 miles an hour. So we put a tube out across the road, and it gathers data. And the 85th percentile speed, 85% of the people are going 38 miles an hour or less, or whatever. So that's what the Federal Highway Administration says engineers should look at when they're determining speed limits. Your speed limit, do you have that other slide I made today, Corby? I know it's a lot to read, but just kind of read at least the red part, the bottom part. The MUTCD recommends that speed limits be within 5 miles an hour of the 85th percentile speed. And that's, in a nutshell, that's what we look for. Mm-hmm. We look for crashes, we look for sight distance problems, and we look at the 85th percentile speed. 85th percentile meaning that's what drivers are going to drive. We could change that sign, but drivers are comfortable driving whatever that 85th percentile is. So, with that said, Stokes currently signed at 30. People are doing whatever we just showed, 37, 38 miles an hour. So there is a speeding concern out there. There's a speeding issue. But the reason we denied it is because without the testimony of the residents, without the council member, we look at the numbers. You can say we put blinders on, we kind of do, but if people are doing 38, we don't want to lower it to 30 or even 25 because you just introduce more violations is what you end up doing. So that's why it's an appeal. The stop sign, I don't have the volumes with me. I did write down that it's a 94 to 6% split, and you've heard me mention these splits 100 times. Stokes has 94% of the volume, where Stokes-Mont has 6%. And you could probably figure that out. It's a low-volume street. So whenever we see that kind of lopsidedness, I'd prefer to bring it before you guys.
Right. Okay.
That's all.
All right. And
So it's,
One other thing I didn't mention, I just wanted to say, the study that was done, was this study done in this year?
This was May 20th of 19.
So one issue is that the schools had let out, so we were concerned because our street typically gets a lot heavier traffic during the school months. And why the study was done after that, we didn't know.
what was the date of the study?
520.
May 20th? I think the schools were still in on.
Yeah, we try to do our volumes and speed studies during school. Now, we might have missed some, but
Vanderbilt, Lipscomb, Belmont, plus the other high schools, private schools. A lot of those people were not in school. So that's a big concern that some of us have.
All right. Would Mr. Hack, yes, Miss Woods.
It appears that what they're asking for is what a lot of the neighborhoods around there are going to, which are the 25-mile-an-hour speed limits.
and that's true.
I mean, you know,
Mr.
that's
Hammond is
and-
here, and Mr. Haggerty's
Yeah,
here
I was
from our
gonna-
traffic calming program.
I was going
and
to
Mr.
suggest
Hammond-
if they could
Yeah.
come and maybe speak to
And
the group.
And, you know, putting in stops to slow people down,
All right.
especially if there's no sidewalks,
All
you
right.
know,
Yeah.
for pedestrians.
Mis-
Right, right.
Yeah.
So,
Mr. Haggerty, would you mind coming up and speaking about traffic calming? Because, I mean, it appears that one of the reasons for the stop sign is is an effort to engage in traffic calming. And I think I've heard you speak that you don't think that's a very effective tool, or not the best one.
Correct. My name is Derek Haggerty with Nashville Public Works in our Transportation Department, program manager for our traffic calming program. And Mr. Moore, something I would definitely like to speak with you with once we wrap up here today. Now, I do have an update on the program that I can get to later, but just really quickly to, I guess, cover a few things that we talked about, mainly stop signs. On the engineering side, we have studies going back to the 1970s showing that stop signs really aren't effective at slowing traffic down over a distance. You know, it's great if you're one of the one or two houses on either side of it, but I think this makes sense to a lot of people. When people come to a stop, then they hit the gas, pick up speed again, make up for that lost time. So when you see my presentation later, I'll be talking about what we do traffic calming wise, which is generally a series of solutions to encourage drivers to go 25, 30 miles an hour. It's not stop and go, it's smooth and calm. So it's just one of the reasons why stop signs, great for controlling traffic flow, great as a safety tool if you're seeing a lot of incidents, but just for slowing traffic in a neighborhood, not really effective.
But am I correct that the Stokes lane would not be applicable for the traffic calming program because it's a collector street?
Yeah, so we take collectors on a case-by-case basis, and it's...
Sorry, what is a collector street?
Sure, so we have 3 different types of streets in Nashville, how we classify them. Arterials, collectors, and local streets. On the 2 far ends, arterials are our heaviest traffic flow. So Charlotte, great example of that. Move-in traffic, large volumes. On the smaller end of that, we have our local streets. These are typically residential, just designed for people to get, to their residence and out of the neighborhood. And then kind of the middle of that is collectors, essentially to move traffic between local streets and arterials. So it's kind of a little bit more of a gray catch-all area. The idea behind collectors essentially being this is how we funnel traffic out of a neighborhood to an arterial. Yep, so it's still eligible for this program. We take them on a case-by-case basis, and we don't have anything great in writing, but if it has a residential feel, which Stokes, I think, no doubt does, could definitely be considered for the program.
Yes, Ms. Woods.
What about, can we go back to the map that has the side streets coming on to Stokes? The
That one,
right.
yeah.
So you're talking about putting one at Stokes Mont. What if you put more than one on that, more than one stop sign if you really want to slow things down?
Yeah, and then we get to the point where we can, unfortunately, frustrate drivers, forcing them off the collector onto those local streets, which we try to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
With collectors, we do want traffic on them as opposed to the local streets.
All right. May I ask a question? Lombardy has speed humps. It was, I think, one of the earliest streets with with speed hump. So is there been studies, or is there a perception that cars have migrated to Stokes because of the speed humps on Lombardy? Because I know when you try to do these speed cushion programs, you try to do multiple streets so that people are not diverting one street to the next.
Correct, and I don't have a study on this, but Lombardy is a little different. It does not connect directly to Belmont Boulevard. It comes back onto Stokes. So just anecdotally, I would say the traffic volumes are much heavier on Stokes, probably 5 to 10 times. Mr. Morris, I don't know if you have a different perception of that.
I think it's heavy. Yeah, I think it is. I understand better what you mean by collector street. So the idea is to get people onto Stokes, not on Stokes Mont, Benham, and those other streets.
Correct.
That's part of our problem, I guess, because you want people driving on Stokes, so...
Well, and just from a street network, Woodmont, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, I believe is an arterial. So ideally we'd have, and I'm in the area quite a bit, so familiar with the issue. I think a lot of his traffic coming off of 440 or going to 440 at that interchange there, taking that shortcut through Hillsborough through Stokes instead of waiting in line to try to get up to Woodmont and take the turns there.
Right. Okay. Ms. Kern.
Well, yeah, I lived at Stokes and Stokes Mont for 20 years, so I can definitely attest to all these problems. I mean, I think the challenge is, like, my entire time living there were neighbors that wanted to do something about Stokes, and we were always told that because it's a collector, there's nothing that could be done because it didn't fall into the residential program. So that to me seems like an insufficient response to all the people. I walked from the bus every day on Belmont up Stokes, and quite treacherous environment. And so, I mean, I think we have to do something. This is a prime example of a street. It has, a big ditch on either side of the road, and cars shouldn't be going 38. So
Well,
think the
I
fact
too
that
grew
that's
up
the
on
age
Stokes
that-
and
Yeah,
Stokesmont, so we have a very biased
Yeah,
group
we do
here,
a
I
little
guess.
bit.
So, experientially, have a lot of experience with that. So I just know my own driving patterns is that I'll confess to using Stokes to avoid Lombardy because of the speed humps. So that's just anecdotal. So, you know, it's curious because I've heard that, you know, about stop signs not being the most effective tool because people suddenly stop and they accelerate. And so I was just curious if there was an alternative.
Right. I think we do have alternatives, which right now fall under our traffic calming program. A large one that you're going to start seeing a little more often here in Nashville is traffic circles, essentially dropping concrete islands into intersections to force traffic to slow down to navigate them. So you can still approach these at 20, 25 miles an hour, navigate them safely, but you're not going to be going 38 miles an hour. We're not getting that stop and go, but we're slowing it down. Now, because this is still a relatively new concept to Nashville, I think we have 4 in the city as a whole. We're keeping these under the traffic calming program umbrella at the moment. Same with speed cushions, speed tables, and a few other devices to slow down traffic. When I get to my presentation after this section, I'll dive into a little more deeply on how we're prioritizing them, but would definitely like to talk to Mr. Morris and get his neighborhood into the program to be considered.
I think, though, that what concerns me that I'm hearing is that this commission's is concerned about pedestrian safety. There are no sidewalks. And, you know, if you have children, people of all ages walking, there's got to be a way to slow people down so that they can get at least from yard to yard to play. So is that lowering speed limit for now, putting some stop signs up for now and revisiting that later, or doing something to address the immediate concerns before colleges start back, for sure?
Yeah, and I would say, stop signs I don't think are going to solve the issues we're seeing in this neighborhood, unless it would be to the point where we're putting them in at every intersection, and then you're just pushing the problems to the side streets where you have just as many children playing. Lowering the speed limit, you know, like we heard earlier, we can lower it, but without additional measures, you know, people aren't following the existing speed limit now.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask, I know that the modified circles, I've seen one like that. I know that they work if you've got 2 streets that cross, but what if you've got this?
Yeah, 3-ways, we can definitely do that as well. 3-way intersections.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think we have one, well, we do have one in Nashville, down in the Bellevue area, and there's also a few in Brentwood just across the county line.
Okay.
But, so what I would like to recommend going forward is that I work with Mr. Morris. Right now we are in our traffic calming application window. Work with him and his neighbors. It sounds like there's a lot of support to get an application in. And then we can run it through our prioritization model compared to the other neighborhoods. If it comes out towards the top of that, which, you know, if we're seeing high speeds, a lot of crashes, definitely a chance of that, then we work with him through the traffic calming program for a solution there.
Okay.
Couldn't you go ahead and just lower the speed limit at this time to 25, and that would help some, or not?
You know,
Well, well, see, the argument we engineers are going to make is lowering the speed limit on paper doesn't lower the speeds.
I agree.
Okay.
It does for some.
It does
Not
for
all.
some, but then you could argue the differences in speeds. If the guy doing 38 and the guy doing the speed limit, it's in danger itself. Variables in speeds introduce different kinds of safety issues.
Okay. I think, is it Overlook or something, the street that Hobbs becomes when you cross 21st, Hillsborough Road? Over, I can't remember what that street is. It has one of those lights that flashes your speed as you go. Yeah. So could something like that work on Stokes Lane? That if, say, you lowered the speed limit to 25, you had one of these flashing things. Does that work as a measure, on a temporary measure?
yeah, I think that could definitely work as a deterrent. And you know,
I mean,
Leave it up to our traffic engineer.
I hear you saying temporary, we'd probably put up a permanent structure, like the street you're talking about.
Yeah, I
Now,
can't
we can
remember
put the
what the
trailer
name is.
out there, and
Yeah.
it works while it's out there, but just like an officer, once they're gone, people creep back up. And now, whatever you guys want to do is fine, and we'll implement it. No matter what we decide today, Mr. Hagerty and Mr. Morris can work together. Because I think this is the kind of street, until you put out a physical device, people are going to speed. It may be less, but they'll still be speeding. Cushions or a circle or something would be your ultimate answer.
Okay. Yes, Ms. Robbins.
How long does it take, once someone's been approved for the program, for something to be enacted?
Yeah, great question. So our application period is going to run through July 22nd. We'll spend the month of August collecting data. Early September, we'll let neighborhoods know which ones are selected. We'll probably be selecting 8 neighborhoods to work with. At that point, it really goes at the neighborhood's pace. So we work with them, set up an initial meeting, present a menu of traffic calming options, share the data we collected, roll out some maps, have neighbors come up and start marking the areas. We'll have as many meetings as we need to get a design together. And at that point, we do a petition process if we're going to change something in the street. Big reason for that, speed cushions, traffic circles, that's going to affect the people that live on the street more than anyone else. So before we put that in, we want to make sure there's neighborhood support behind it.
Okay.
With the petitions here, it looks like that would not be an issue in this case. And then at that point, we're ready for construction. So it's a long way of saying it depends on the neighborhood. Yeah, we really go at the neighborhood's pace, but
All right.
So
Yep.
could the time frame be as short as 3 months, 6 months? What would we, or a year? What
if
would
the
be-
neighborhood is able to move very fast, schedule a meeting quick, sign off on design quick, we could probably do something in 3 months. 6 months is probably more realistic based on what we've been seeing.
All right. Mr. Morris, do you have thoughts? And I'm sorry, Ms. Kern. I was really interested in hearing your thoughts about working with Mr. Haggerty on this.
It's the first time I've had any contact, so I'd be happy to try. And there are other people in my neighborhood that I think would also help. So we'd really appreciate your help because we don't know what to do. And it's been a long slog for us. We tried with sidewalks, and I know that wasn't accepted. And so just tell me what we need to do, and I'll be glad to help.
All right, Ms. Kern, you had.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts are, I think 25 is definitely the speed it should be, but I definitely understand that if you make it that today, it doesn't mean people are necessarily going to drive that speed. Having lived there can attest to people driving fast regardless. I mean, my idea would be moving forward with the speed limit reduction and then deferring the stop sign physical installation until after they're able to go through the traffic calming program.
Okay, all right.
But
So
that would be my
would you
thought.
like to make a motion to that effect? We have 2 separate items. I think we need 2 separate
Well,
motions.
okay. I would make a motion to defer item 1, 3 meetings.
Okay.
So
The
that
stop
they can,
sign.
The stop sign, so that they can go through the traffic calming program.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Morris, for your vote. That makes the rest of the votes feel better. Okay.
You broke your tie.
Item number 2, appeal for reduced speed limit. So
I
we
make a
have-
motion that we approve reducing the speed limit
to-
from 35 to 25.
Okay, we have a first
I
and a
would
second.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion, any opposed? Okay, that motion has been approved. And then we have a third item, reduce speed limit on Battlefield from 35 to 25 miles per hour.
So moved.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? None. Okay, so those been passed. Okay. So we've deferred the all-way stop and lowered the speed limit. Okay. All right. I think the next item is the Parklet Program Update by the Metro Planning Department Civic Design and Civic Design Center. So, y'all will step forward, please.
Maybe at 3:30 next month.
Yeah, I noticed that. I wasn't sure if it was a typo.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alan Gonzalez with the Metro Planning Department.
Can you speak up just a little bit?
Sure.
I don't know if the mic is working. You may just have to enunciate louder.
Sure thing. Good afternoon. My name is Alan Gonzalez with the Metro Nashville Planning Department. You've seen me before discussing this program. As you know, parklets are a temporary use of public space, whether there be within on-street parking spaces or unused right-of-way. This is a pilot program that we kicked off last parking day and with the leadership of the mayor's office. Go to the next slide. Like I mentioned, this is just a one-year pilot that we've kicked off. It's meant to use temporary materials such as wood or pavers or what have you, things that are movable. It's meant to be within mixed-use areas to support our businesses and neighborhood groups. And it's meant to be meant to help Nashvilleians. Yeah, it's meant to help Nashvilleians rethink of how we use our streets as not just for moving cars, but also to help with creating more public space for people who live in urban areas, for example.
I was wondering, maybe since there's not really a mic there, would it be okay if he just stood here in the more middle and talked with us? I think that would be helpful.
These doors are open, and I'm hard of hearing anyway, so.
So if you wouldn't mind kind of just,
That'd be good.
just,
Right here.
yeah.
Talk
That way
straight
he
to
can hear.
just talk straight to the vice chair.
All right.
My name is Alan Gonzalez with the Metro Nashville Planning Department. I assure you my name's not Chip. As you guys know, I'm with the Planning Department. I've been here before discussing our Parklets pilot program through the leadership of the mayor's office. We kicked off this program last year on Parking Day in September, and it's meant to be a one-year pilot meant to encourage the use of temporary materials such as wood or pavers, similar to what other cities have done. For our first year, we kicked this off as through the use of a one-time window to limit the amount of staff time and to limit the amount of time you come to you guys to beg things. And it's meant to create a little more of hand-holding, so it creates more flexibility in design, but also encouraging more public engagement to get more folks on board with how these things work. Next slide. As I mentioned at last month's commission hearing, we're at the final stage. Basically, we've opened it up to applications last year. We reviewed them this past February as part of our internal screening. The window was closed February 8th, and we had a Parklet Review Committee, which Commissioner Neal was on our commission, and we're grateful for everyone that's been a part of the program so far. As I mentioned, this is the final stage before we move on to permitting through the Public Works Department. Next slide. Out of we received 3 applications for this window. It opened up last September and closed in February. We received 2 downtown, one on 5th Avenue in front of Frothy Monkey, one in front of Mike's Ice Cream on 2nd Avenue, and one in 12th South in front of Jenny's Ice Cream. Out of the 3 that submitted applications, 1 made it to the final stage. That met all our qualifications and received the most amount of public engagement, public support. Cool. I'm going to talk briefly about the proposed project that's in front of you. It's one space in front of Mike's Ice Cream on a metered space. It's along the west side of 2nd Avenue, close to the Commerce Street intersection. Next slide. As you can see, it's under the shaded part of the street. They initially had the idea of having pergola, more intricate design, but we've scaled it back to just have one space of seating. And last but not least, this is what's in front of you today. This request is basically the proposed bagging of meter C2025. Basically, just the meter that's next to Mike's Ice Cream, next to about 15 feet away from the fire hydrant that's there. And with that, I'll leave it up to the Civic Design Center to get to the specifics of this request.
Thank you. Oh, sure. I'm gonna try. Yeah, go ahead. You can be Mike first.
So I'm Eric Hogue. I'm the design manager at the Nashville Civic Design Center.
And my name is Jolene Yaki, and I oversee special projects, of which this is one at the Nashville Civic Design Center.
And I think, can you go next slide? Yeah. So I just wanted to so Parking Day is an event we do every year to try to get people to think differently about public space. And last year, Mayor Briley came out and kind of announced this parklet program, which allows anyone really to occupy parking spaces for a period of time, as Elwin kind of mentioned there. So we've kind of tooled the design a lot. It's kind of come down to this 20-foot long section that would it's actually a partnership with Mars Pet Care, located in the Middle Tennessee region here. Their global headquarters is located here. So we're working with them to create better cities for pets, and Nashville being a pilot city in that. We hoped that this could be one of the first pet-friendly parklets that we know of, at least. So you can kind of see in this picture here, there's a few kind of like dog amenities that we could offer to people sitting outside eating ice cream and so on. Let's see. Yeah, so the site itself, it's 15 feet from a hydrant. It's the parking spot that's closest to Mike's Ice Cream, which we've actually piloted a few parklets here. We've done at least every parking day. This is a preferred spot for the one-day installation, but we've also done, I think there was a weekend-long parklet trial period that was very successful in terms of people who used it, and so that's kind of the site there.
The pet-friendly amenities?
Yeah.
Yes, and also another partner with regard to this parklet, which, and I'm sorry, I know he had to step out, is the Nashville Downtown Partnership. So they've been a part of this discussion, the development of this design from the beginning. But if you just take a quick look, this is our latest design. We're very blessed that there is actually a tree right in front of this space, so that for at least the time being would serve as our shade component, which is something that's important when you have a public space. And then you can just see, I'm not going to go through everything, but you can see on the left-hand side of just looking at the screen right here, there's a free waste bag dispenser, so anybody that's walking by that has a pet can pick one up. There is a small little area where dogs can get water, and that would also involve Mike's Ice Cream and a couple of their partners just helping us to maintain that. If we're not able to get actually it's a piloted for a portable hydration station, we're working on that. And then there's just kind of a cutout area so people can sit and enjoy ice cream. There's also a stand-up area kind of right in the middle, and that there's space and little tethering hooks, so if someone does want to have an animal next to them, they can keep that animal right there. We obviously, this is not shown in this rendering, but we do have rules, kind of standards of conduct for people and pets, inclusive of people and pets. And I think that's kind of it at this time. If anybody would like to discuss the design in more detail, we're happy to do that.
Yeah, the next slide is kind of more technical if you're curious about that, but just kind of offers some dimensions and things like that. And then this one kind of speaks to the kind of communicating the reason, well, one of the reasons for this parklet and allowing people to occupy this space with their dogs and also just enjoy public space.
Yep, the signage is supportive of public health as well as responsible pet ownership practices for people that do come with pets.
And this is kind of a proposal of a few materials that we've used in the past, and this we actually bid out to just to get a quote, see kind of what we're working with, and these are just some ideas basically about materials that it could be made of. And also the proposed maintenance plan and just some potential rules that could be posted in the parklet are on that page. So that's our
So-
proposal for parklet.
Is the request here that you need approval from the commission to bag the meter? Is that correct? Is that what I'm understanding? Okay.
No,
Is there a request, besides being informational, is there an action item that the commission needs to
not
take?
at this time. No.
Okay, okay,
And anything that would happen through this program would be through the permit process.
okay. Okay.
We would
Just
bring it before you guys for an FYI.
Okay, gotcha.
Looks great.
It looks great. May I ask a question, please? Just my curiosity. So, I know this works with where you have existing curbside space. So when people are doing new construction along a major thoroughfare, what kind of work do you do with people to try to incorporate these kind of features into, the building design? Or what, is this stuff only, then would it only be on sidewalks, or would you incorporate this into the curb space?
So, yeah, I mean, I think we're all this is kind of an experimental process, and we hope to, obviously, other cities have done similar parklet programs, famous ones being San Francisco and Philadelphia all have pretty robust parklet programs.
Right.
So we look to those cities for kind of examples of more refined parklets and so on and so forth. But we are hoping that this kind of serves as a test for Nashville, and we could see how it could be used other ways.
All right, well, thank you. Mr. Neal, thank you for serving on this task force.
I do have a question, though.
Yes.
You mentioned, how do you gauge success? Is it
So,
from the vendor, Mike, or do you have some kind of camera?
Yeah.
You're looking at everybody sitting down,
Well-
through the pilot program. I just want to know how was your
Yeah, we actually did a training process about evaluating public space with international firm Gell Studio, and they trained us on how to evaluate. So we have what we call public space, public life studies that it's based on volunteers who can basically tally and take basically snapshots of the day. So we look at the public space using these studies, and then it is kind of subjective, but we saw high usage of the space, more than one person parking their car. So we thought it was a good case to go forward with.
And also, in a component of the design, that little box that the waste box dispenser was on, that actually is designed to be a permanent space for public input. So we can ask questions, give people an opportunity to offer feedback about their experience, make suggestions, not just about that space, but public space all the way around our city. So it'll be a constant process for us that we'd be looking very forward to reporting back on.
All right. Well, yes.
How do you see the internal process devised to report issues working?
What we have determined with Downtown Partnership and also in consultation with Public Works and various metro departments is that there's going to be a telephone number that will be posted within this space. So if there is some sort of issue, concern, the waste bag dispensers out of bags, and that will go to a singular phone that we will oversee. And then we have an internal plan as far as kind of like a phone tree, depending on what the issue is and who it goes to. So if it goes to Downtown Partnership, if it's something we need to share with Metro right away, if it's something just for our own internal tracking, and that would be consistent from day one as soon as this parklet pops up.
Yes, Mr. Hager.
We voted on this a year and a half ago. They've changed it up a little bit. I remember this, but is this a private-public partnership with the business in front of there?
Mike's Ice Cream is not financially investing in this space. However, they have agreed to help us monitor it, provide feedback, provide a little bit of consistent eyes on with their staff coming out to check, reporting issues. So it is a partnership.
Anybody from the public can go there then, is that correct?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Because we had an issue with the officer that was here last year was talking about people spending the night there and staying there. How are you going to monitor that?
We are going to post in our rules that it's kind of like a park. It's sort of, sunset to sundown with regard to that. We have discussed in a variety of scenarios just having like a little gate that goes across the entrance, but I think that the general consensus among the partners is that we want to kind of test it first and see how it goes without creating a barrier for people. And yeah, just sort of see how it goes and then, manage it best from there.
I guess we'll get more into it
Yeah.
later on.
Yes. Okay. Any other comments? Yes.
So that goes to my question, who is responsible for the actual maintenance and making sure that everything is safe and working properly and just the general upkeep of it? So if it's not the business, it's the city?
Actually, it'll be a partnership with Downtown Partnership and
Okay.
ourselves.
Okay.
I do not have any sort of build or safety degree or certification, so we'll be checking on. That's one of the nice things about it being directly across from our office, is that we're going to be checking on it daily, 7 days a week. And then aside from that, we'll schedule monthly and quarterly inspections.
All right.
Professionals.
Any other comments? Thank you all very much for the presentation,
Thank you.
educating us.
I didn't mean to cut you off, John.
No,
Thank you. I appreciate
you're
it.
welcome. All right, Mr. Haggerty, you are up again.
All right.
Sorry, but I did not mention that also Downtown Partnership.
Yeah.
They're
And,
going to fold us into their regular.
Before we get started, thank you very much for working with Mr. Morris. Appreciate that.
No, of course.
Okay.
All right, Derek Hagerty, Nashville Public Works Transportation Division, and just want to give everyone a quick update on our neighborhood traffic calming program and relay a little information about it. Next slide, please. All right, so generally, what is traffic calming? Simply using physical measures to slow down traffic. You can see we have a whole list of things here, but it's everything from signage and striping up to speed humps and traffic circles. Big idea behind all this is that we're using a number of different measures to encourage a slow, smooth speed across a distance in a neighborhood in most of these cases. All right, so just kind of the highlights of what I'm going to hit on here. We revamped the program in 2019, moved to a twice-a-year application period, and we're looking at about 8 neighborhoods per selection, so a total of 16 per year. Just funding-wise, we're looking to spend about $50,000-$60,000 on a neighborhood, so that gets us to about 16 a year. And then additionally, we're using a completely data-driven process to make our selections. All right, so why the changes? Big change for the first time since, I believe, 1999, we had money dedicated solely to traffic calming. So because of that, one, we brought the process in-house. In the past, we've done some level of traffic calming, mainly through consultants, but with the extra funding dedicated towards this, that's one of the big reasons I'm here before you today. We also wanted to make sure neighborhoods were not left on the hook. In the past, we kept adding neighborhoods to our traffic calming list, and by the end of it, we had about 40, 50 neighborhoods who were told that they were in the traffic calming program, but really not much for funding set aside towards that. So here, each application process, we either tell a neighborhood, yes, we're going to go forward with the project, or we ask them to apply again during the next round. So no one's told they're in the program, sitting there waiting 5 years for a project. All right, application, very simply, we have 2 application periods a year. This one just opened up today. It runs through July 22nd. We've so far received, I want to say 31 applications last time I looked. Some of those were grandfathered in from last time. They didn't all hit the inbox today, but definitely interest in this program. 4 pages to the application. First page is just showing us that there's some neighborhood buy-in. So it's either an officer from a neighborhood organization or it's 4 individuals who live in different houses on the street signing off on it. We just want to see that there's some interest in the neighborhood to move forward with the project if selected. The second sheet gives neighborhoods a chance to list the problem streets that they're seeing by precedence. So when we go in to collect data, we know where to focus our efforts. The third page there gives neighbors an opportunity to list the issues we're seeing, and that allows us to do 2 things. One, once a neighborhood is selected, we're going in with an idea of what we're looking at, and 2, if there's something in here that can be solved outside of the traffic calming program, we can pass this application to the necessary person, look at tackling it through other routes if possible. And finally, the 4th page is simply a sheet that essentially says needs a signature saying meetings are going to be held in a respectful manner, and that's probably the most important part of this, honestly. Next slide, please. All right, so the data collection process. Once July 22nd hits, we'll have all our applications. I'm sure we'll have one or two trickle in after that, but we'll begin the process of data collection. There's two different ways we do this. One through a GIS system. This is basically just data mapping. We'll be able to draw in the neighborhoods and populate all the data within there that we need for our model. And I'll get into how we make our selections on the next slide or two here. But we'll use that GIS model, draw the neighborhood, pull out all the data we needed from existing Metro files. And then two, as you can see in the picture, we'll lay down some tubes across the street and collect speeds. So if nothing else comes out of this program, those 31 neighborhoods that applied, they're going to be able to get this speed data back, and we're going to be able to break it down by hour. That's really helpful to the police department. If you tell someone, let's say there's speeding going on Stokes Lane, that's kind of general. If we can say we're seeing a lot of speeding between 7:30 a.m. and 8:30 a.m., that helps a little bit more. So nothing else, I think that's valuable data we're getting back to the neighborhoods. All right, so how we make our selections. We have a 100-point model that we use. 40 points of that comes from the crash history. We look at crashes per mile per year going back the past 5 years. Ideally, we'd like to get to the point with this program where we're not using crash history, where we've gotten all the neighborhoods that are seeing most of the crashes taken care of. But right now, we're kind of digging ourselves out of a hole a little bit. 30 points come from the measured speeds. So what we do is take the 85th percentile speed and compare that to the speed limit. That's how we kind of determine speeding. The last two categories are 15% each. The first one is neighborhood destinations. We look at, Metro-owned neighborhood destinations that we believe encourage pedestrian travel, especially for children and the elderly. So that's schools, community centers, parks, libraries, anything of that nature. And finally, we have 15 points for active transportation. This is anything that either encourages or forces people into the street. So on the encourage side, that's bike lanes, bus stops. Are we building infrastructure to try to get people into the streets? And on the forcing side, it's mainly lack of sidewalks. Are we not giving people an option of where else they can walk? So that plays into the scores here. All right, so just to review what we saw in January here, we had a 3-week application window. First one we had 54 neighborhoods apply. We selected 8 of those. Of all 54, though, we saw 36 had an 85th percentile speed of 35 miles an hour or greater. Now, the reason I'm using that number there, I want to say it was about 5 or 6 years ago, we did a study in the city looking at local streets at 85th percentile speeds. I think it was something like 147 streets that were measured. The average 85th percentile speed was 34.75 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the baseline we're looking at now. That may be a little outdated now, but it's still the most up-to-date data we have. So 36 of those 54 neighborhoods applied are saw traffic speeds faster than what we're used to seeing. So big thing with this program, just because a neighborhood is not selected does not mean we don't recognize there's a speeding issue. We have limited resources, and we want to make sure we're doing a good job with the neighborhoods we're selected so that they don't see these problems arise, and then we'll move on to the next ones. If we continue the pace we're at, 16 neighborhoods a year, in 5 years we'll be able to get into 80 neighborhoods, which I think will make a pretty big difference in the city. All right, quick map of where we saw applications and the neighborhoods that were selected. So everything in blue is the neighborhoods we saw apply. Pretty good cross-section of the city. And then we had 8 that we selected showing up in green there. And, just data-driven, pretty good collection around the city. North, east, south side, west. We feel like covered areas pretty well. Pretty even distribution. All right. Next slide, please. Then of the 8 neighborhoods selected, they all shared one of either 2 characteristics. One, the 85th percentile speed was over 41 miles an hour. 2, the crash rate was over 7 crashes per mile per year. So we think of these 8 neighborhoods, definitely need to go in and do some work. Here's a chart we put together. This is up on our website, just showing a breakdown of the scores for all neighborhoods. So everyone can come here, take a look, see how their neighborhood did. So I don't want to pick on Wexford Downs, but if anyone's from Wexford Downs here, we didn't have a crash in the last 5 years. The 85th percentile speed was 28 miles an hour. So vast majority of people were going under the speed limit. And speeding is subjective, but just compared to the other neighborhoods we saw, maybe not as much of a need right now. But we want to make sure this is available to all the neighborhoods so they can see how they rank. And this also, I know this is impossible to read right now, but it doesn't mean that Oriole Place, who just missed the cut, is guaranteed to get picked up next time. We could have 8 new neighborhoods apply that are all seeing higher speeds, higher crash rates, and they could slide right in there. But we do give Oriole Place the option, hey, stay in the running here, and they can update their application if they'd like. All right, so for neighborhoods that are not selected, obviously we encourage them to reapply, kind of saying the same thing I said earlier, 80 neighborhoods in 5 years. Because you weren't one of the 8 selected, doesn't mean you don't have a problem. We still want to get to you. We also share the data we collected, like I spoke about earlier, and always recommend that people go to Hub Nashville if they see some issues that maybe we can solve with signage, pavement marking, something, not quite as expensive. For neighborhoods that are selected, first thing we do, put together a kickoff meeting, and kind of hit on this earlier, but share a menu of traffic calming options, share the data, roll out some maps, have neighbors come up, start marking up the plans. We really want this to be a neighborhood-driven project. They're inviting Public Works in to do this. We don't want to put in anything that's, that the neighborhood doesn't want. With that, we develop a preliminary design. Oh, you can go back one. Yeah. Preliminary design. We'll go back as many times as we have to through this process, very iterative. And then we do a petition process. Before we install anything physical in the street, we need 70% of residences in the affected area to sign off on it. Speed humps, speed cushions are great for slowing down traffic. They're going to affect the people that live on that street more than anyone else. So we really want to make sure that it's just not a couple people driving this, but the neighborhood as a whole is educated and on board with what we're proposing. And then once we get that done, we move forward with the construction process. All right, July 2019 window, open through the 22nd. Just today, we reached out to community coordinators with the police department, council members, to help get in some more applications, make sure we're reaching as much of the county as possible. And I think, this number is higher now, but we have over 30 neighborhoods right now already in the queue. Yeah, so that wraps up what I have here. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Haggerty. Be good.
All right, thank you.
Well, this is great because personally, I've been on the commission for 9 years, and this is the most complete traffic calming presentation thing I've seen in 9 years. So it's good that we're making some headway. Based on 9 years of listening, people coming here wanting stop signs and lower speeds, it's good that there's a program in place. So thank you for your work.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay. We are, a reminder that our next meeting, August 12th, will also be at this location.
Is it at 3:30?
No, it's at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay. And do we have a motion to adjourn? Yes. Okay, one question. Yes, Ms. Williams.
There is a street, it's a very short street at Union and First Avenue Woodland Street, where it crosses over the bridge in front of Metro Courthouse, where Grumpy's bail bonds used to be in that building. That little street has been closed for 3 months with a dumpster sitting in it. And how long is that going to be closed? I mean, people, the workers are parking all around there, and why can't that dumpster be put behind the building and open that street back up?
Is it Bank Street?
No, it's right there, First Avenue and before you go across the bridge out there at Union. You know where Union curves? And you got the little street that goes straight into First Avenue, and you can take a right and go down First Avenue. They had a dumpster sitting there for probably a couple of months.
Yeah, 3 months. It's been there for 3 months.
And I don't know what it was there for, but, you know, I work right there on Second, so I saw it every day.
Okay.
I'll check, but you say it's gone, you think?
It's gone now.
Well, it must have disappeared over the weekend.
Okay.
It'll be back, probably.
It'll be back. All right. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Let us know if it's not, when you go check.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.